Welcome to the new day. I'm your host Caleb, and today we'll be making some delicious homemade cranberry wine. I know it's early spring, but I'm actually going to go ahead and start thinking about the holidays. Cranberry wine makes great gifts for the holidays later on this year, and it's going to give me enough time to make it, let it clear up, and be a good, delicious wine. But this will be a few-part series. So check back often, every few weeks, to stay updated on how we can get this started, and you can kind of do this and follow this along with me if you like. Tell you what, let's go ahead and get started. Now, because I'm going to be doing this on a semi-large scale, I'm going to be using a 5-gallon carboy that's made out of glass. It's kind of like a Primo bottle glass that you can get. They're actually pretty cheap. Anywhere from $20 to $30 if you want to make anything in a 5-gallon size. Otherwise, you can just use the 1-gallon option that I have here that it actually comes in. It's already sterile, so you don't have to do any cleaning to the particular bottles whenever you open these up. However, if you are going to be using a separate container, I have a 1-gallon container as well if I were to kind of pour this out and transfer it to if I want to make a 1-gallon mixed drink or something like that, or wine. You do need to clean these very thoroughly. I've actually, if there's any debris, if there's anything in there that you need to clean out, you need to get the dust out. So I use soap, just like a dial soap, non-scented. You need to rinse that very thoroughly because it can leave a film in your container, giving you kind of a soapy taste if you're not careful to your wine. You don't want that at all. So once you've rinsed it thoroughly, we're going to actually sterilize it from any bacteria, any mold, anything that can get into the wine that's actually inside the container. And typically people will use a sodium metabisulfite. It's a very safe chemical. You see this in a lot of commercial wines that says contains sulfites. That's essentially what this is. And this kills the bacteria. And you typically would use a 1/8 teaspoon per gallon, which is actually not that much. And for a 5-gallon, it would be safe. And this kills all the bacteria. However, I'm actually out, and I need a new method to sterilize this. I was going to use bleach, but I just don't want to use bleach in something that I'm going to be eating or drinking. So what I'm going to do instead is use boiling water to clean this out and sterilize it, top it off, swirl it around, and kill anything that at a very high temperature, and I think that'll be absolutely fine for what I'm trying to do today. So let's go ahead and get that started. I'm going to boil some water and clean this out. We need to heat the glass up first so I don't crack it when I pour in the boiling water. Let's do that. So what we need to do now is wash our hands, of course, to make sure there's no bacteria on our hands. So just take some soap and wash them. Get them nice and clean. And next, we need to fill my sink with hot water. So I'm going to put the stopper in the sink. I'm going to take the glass carboy, make sure it's hot, put it in the sink, and then let hot water run on the outside of it. On the outside of it, just to be sure that I can kind of increase the temperature at the bottom so I don't crack my glass. I don't want to have to pay another $20 or $30 for one of these carboys. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to boil the water and pour it in here, swirl it around to kill any bacteria. Now that our carboy is sanitized and sterilized, we can go ahead and start transferring some of the cranberry wine juices. Essentially, this is a cranberry juice cocktail with high fructose corn syrup. It's about 34 grams of sugar per 8 fluid ounces, which isn't, it'll probably give you about 5 to 8% alcohol. So we're actually going to have to add sugar later on. Now everything that touches the wine has to be sterilized. I put the funnel that I'm going to use already. I've run out, boiling water over it, so it's going to be sterilized as well. So you'll just pretty much take your time if you're going to use one of these carboys, and just, it's still kind of warm, but that should be all right. And just pour your juice into the carboy. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this with 3 of them. And you'll see what I'm going to do with the other 2 in just a moment to make it easier for the sugar to dissolve. The easiest way to add the sugar, which is later turned to alcohol by the yeast, is to pour one of your containers of cranberry juice into a pot and warm it up on like a medium-low setting. Do not boil it. On a medium to low setting, I'm gonna do, mine goes up to about 10, so I'm gonna put it on 4 or 5, somewhere in between there. I'm gonna let this warm up for a little bit. So we're gonna add, let's see, this is 2 cups. Four cups. The measuring cup is 2 cups. So let's see, let's get 4, 6, and 8. Let's stir this up with a sterile utensil that was soaked in boiling water for 30 seconds or more. And what we'll do is we'll just stir it so that the sugar will dissolve much more rapidly now than having to shake it inside the carboy. It's kind of heavy after a while if you do that. Now before you pour it into the carboy, take a little out, pour it into your measuring cup. This is what we're going to use to start the yeast in. So I'm going to pour about a cup. We need to activate the yeast so that we can go ahead and start turning the sugars into alcohol. And here's 2 examples of what I have. I actually use a Red Star DADY Distiller's Active Dry Yeast. It's actually a very good yeast. It doesn't leave any bad aftertaste for me in my wines. And right now I have also a Red Star Family Baking Yeast for bread. I've used this before. It's not that bad, but once again, don't use bread yeast if you don't have to. Actually go out and invest 30 cents, maybe $1 to get wine yeast. You can get it at online. I'll actually put some links in the description for places you can probably go to find the yeast, like brewersbest.com, things like that. I use that quite often. What I'm going to do now is it's 1 to 2 grams per gallon. I have about 4 gallons in here. And I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons, 1 and 2, into that juice that we saved earlier that we had taken from the pot. I have a whole bunch of sugar in it. It's actually quite warm, so it actually will activate the yeast as well. It's not boiling. It's around 110 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want it to be too hot. You can kill your yeast. And if it's not hot enough, it won't even activate the yeast, or it'll just get a really bad start. And I'm going to add just a little bit more, probably 2.5 tablespoons altogether to get myself started. Swirl it around a little bit. You want to try and keep this juice, warm, and that'll give the yeast a really good start. And while the yeast is activating over here for about 10 to 15 minutes, I want to go ahead and add some citrus to the wine. I have 2 lemons and 2 oranges. One's larger than the other, but this will give the wine some more acidity to it. I want to make sure that it has some character, and I like citrusy wines anyways, so we're just going to squeeze these into the wine. And finally, now that our yeast is activated, we're going to go ahead and pour this into our juice mixture. That way we can go ahead and start fermenting the juice, make the alcohol. So I'm just going to pour it in here. Nothing special about it. There you go. We do now need to protect it while it's fermenting. If you have an airlock, which is designed to let air out because it's going to start bubbling, letting carbon dioxide out of the bottle here, what you're going to have is an airlock that kind of just sets down in there. You're going to fill it up to a certain line with water or vodka, something sterile, some kind of sterile substance. That way, if it somehow randomly bubbled over, you wouldn't get contamination into your juice mixture here. If you don't have an airlock to be able to cover over this, you could use a balloon, poke a hole in the balloon, put a rubber band around it. I use coffee filters and put rubber bands around them for a certain amount of time, because after a while it's going to stop bubbling and it's going to start aging. You're not going to want to let air in during that period, because it could cause it to actually turn into vinegar. If it doesn't turn to vinegar, it's going to start oxidizing, and it's going to give it a very tart, very off oxidized taste to the wine. And some people like that. You can make a sherry with that, some type of cranberry sherry wine. But that's essentially how we're going to do that. You want to keep this out of the light, so what you can do is put a towel like this around it, cover it up. This will also keep it warm. And push it to the side, forget about it for about 2 weeks. And that's what we're going to do here. I'll put a link in the description for the next episode in this series. And thank you for joining me today. And I'll see you next time on a new day.